Justine Waters picked up her phone when she heard it buzz. It was a message from her husband, Tom, who had been out of town on business for the last few days. She unlocked her phone and read the message. "Finished here," the message read. "On my way back. Dinner reservations have been set for 7 p.m. at Mario's. See you there. Happy anniversary," the message concluded. There were no loving endearments or heart emojis. That didn't surprise her much. Tom hadn't been very communicative lately for some reason. "See ya. Happy anniversary. Love you." She sent the message but didn't expect a reply. She set her phone on the nightstand, hoping to see a reply. Something. Anything would be nice. But none came. Justine looked at the clock and realized she had just enough time to get cleaned up before meeting her husband. She sighed as she got off the bed and started for the adjoining bathroom where she would shower before meeting her husband. "Who was that?" Jake Carter, the man she had just spent time with, asked from behind her. Justine paused at the bathroom door. "My husband, letting me know he's on his way back. He's already made reservations for us at Mario's tonight. It's our 5th anniversary." Jake sat up in bed. "Your 5th anniversary, huh? I thought you said he was back east." "Booked away." "Huh?" It was Justine replied, gathering her things. "Apparently, he's managed to wrap things up early. I'll need to call my mother, see if she won't mind looking after little Jacob for a while longer." "All right, do that. Then we can spend more time together. Maybe we can surprise Tom with something special." Justine shook her head at that suggestion. "I'd love to, Jake, but I really need to get cleaned up, and I don't have much time. Fortunately, I have some clean clothes here I can put on. Wouldn't do to meet my husband in the clothes I wore over here. They're all wrinkled and stained." Jake's voice carried a hint of concern. "You think he knows about us?" "No, I don't think so," Justine said, moving toward the closet. "He's been pretty wrapped up in something lately. It's been taking up almost all of his attention. He rarely speaks to me, and he almost never does anything with the baby. It's like he's in a completely different world." "How long are you going to keep this up?" Jake asked, watching her select clothes. Justine hesitated. "It's hard to say. He's a good provider. I know he'd be a great father if he ever applied himself." Jake's tone grew more serious. "You think he knows about little Jacob not being his?" "If he does, he hasn't said anything," Justine replied quietly. "I can't imagine that he would let something like that go without mentioning it to me." Jake got up from the bed. "Well, I'll be here for you if you need anything." Justine smiled at him. "Just keep yourself available for me, okay?" "You know it, baby," he told her, returning her smile. Justine went into the closet and pulled out a clean dress. She couldn't believe how much of her wardrobe was in this closet instead of the closet she shared with her husband. Justine looked at the dress she selected, trying to remember if it was one Tom had seen before. It was blue, fell about 3 inches above her knee, and showed just enough to be flattering. She was pretty certain it was one Tom had seen before. If not, she would simply tell him she just purchased it. After calling her mother, Justine went into the bathroom and took a nice hot shower, hoping she could clean up properly before meeting Tom. She promised herself when she started her affair with Jake 16 months ago that she would never disrespect her husband by being careless about her appearances. At first, Jake understood, but ever since little Jacob was born just over 3 months ago, he began pressuring her to be less careful about these things. Justine told him that was inappropriate and refused to disrespect her husband that way. It was bad enough that she was having an affair with Jake, and it was even worse that she had given birth to Jake's child. But she wouldn't go that far. After her shower, Justine brushed her long dark hair until it was just right, dressed, and applied her makeup. Satisfied that she looked and smelled good enough to pass Tom's inspection, she gave Jake a kiss and said goodnight. Jake called after her as she headed for the door. "See you in the office tomorrow?" "Of course, lover," Justine replied over her shoulder. "But for tonight, duty calls." She grabbed her purse and left the room. Tom Waters took a drag off his cigarette as he sat in his Escalade in the parking lot across from Mario's. He just received a message from one of the private investigators working for him. Justine had just left the luxury condo owned by Jake Carter, her lover of nearly a year and a half. He looked at the photo the PI sent and took in the blue dress she was wearing. It wasn't the same dress she wore when she went to Carter's condo earlier that day, and it was certainly not one Tom had seen before. He wasn't surprised. Justine was right about one thing. Tom had been back east, but he returned a day ago. He had been told in no uncertain terms that he had a serious security breach that had to be dealt with, immediately. If he didn't deal with it, he was told, they would. They, of course, being a federal agency the public was not allowed to know even existed. Tom remembered how nervous he felt sitting in the office of the one-eye man he knew only as Alpha One. Only a handful of people were even allowed to know the man's name. And Tom wasn't on the list. "You have a serious problem, Waters," the man said, moving his head in a way that reminded Tom of the actor who once played Moses. "And when you have a problem, we all have a problem. Deal with it, quietly, or I will." "Yes, sir," Tom said. He was smart enough to know that was the only answer Alpha One would accept, and he also knew Alpha One had no qualms about making people disappear. He had heard stories of how Alpha One once had an entire beach estate eliminated, along with everyone inside. Tom shivered at the thought. Justine thought Tom was just a glorified salesman who traveled around the country hawking his wares to various companies looking to upgrade their security systems. But Tom was much more than that. Sure, he actually did sell security equipment, and he oversaw the installation, but he was more than that. Much more. The equipment he sold and installed was equipped with special circuitry that gave Alpha One's monitors insight into nearly everything those companies did, who they took on as customers, what they did with their profits, everything. And Tom knew the breach Alpha One spoke of was his wife of 5 years, Justine. Well, 5 years as of today, that is. For about the last year and a half, she had been involved in an affair with Jake Carter, one of the senior partners at the law firm where she worked as a paralegal. Tom didn't know all the particulars until fairly recently, primarily due to the fact that he spent a great deal of time traveling for work. But he did notice a few things had been off between them for a while. By the time he learned the specifics of the affair, Justine announced her pregnancy. The lawyer Tom spoke to told him that no judge in this state would even entertain a divorce as long as Justine was pregnant. If the child turned out to be his, he would be on the hook for child support, along with maintenance, regardless of the prenuptial agreement they both signed. At least he didn't have to worry about the house, which was already his when they married. Tom gritted his teeth and remained silent throughout her pregnancy and nearly lost it when she named the boy Jacob, after his biological father. Immediately after the boy was born, Tom asked for a DNA test. He wasn't surprised to learn the boy wasn't his. Looking at his watch, Tom knew that Justine would arrive soon. He saw a man in a khaki jacket standing by the door to Mario's with a woman carrying a briefcase and knew that was his cue. He drove across the street and parked. Grabbing his ever-present briefcase, he walked to the front door, nodding slightly to the two people by the door. Tom spoke quietly to the woman at the door and was soon sitting in a corner booth. The khaki-clad man and the woman with him sat at another booth within earshot. Tom thanked the waitress for the water and started looking over his menu. He detected Justine's presence at the table and set his menu down. He stood as she slid into the booth across from him. "Good evening, Justine," Tom said formally. "You look very nice this evening." "Thank you, Tom," she said, smiling nervously. Tom's eyes lingered on her outfit. "I don't recall seeing that dress before. Is that something new?" Yeah, I just picked it up," Justine replied quickly. "Do you like it?" "Yes, it really brings out your eyes," he told her with a slight smile. After they finished ordering, they heard music playing from a different area of the establishment. Mario's was more than a restaurant. It also featured a dance floor and cocktail lounge. "It sounds like they're playing our song," Justine said hopefully. Tom knew that was her way of saying she wanted to dance. What the heck, he thought. This was their anniversary, even if it would be their last. "Care to dance?" Tom asked, extending his hand. "Don't mind if I do," Justine said, holding out her hand. Tom took her hand and led her to the dance floor. They danced in each other's arms, but Justine couldn't help but notice that Tom was keeping a bit of distance between them, almost as if he could barely stand to touch her. The song finally over, Tom escorted her back to the booth. By then, their food had arrived, and they began eating. "Is something wrong, Tom?" Justine asked, studying his face. "You seem so distant. This is supposed to be our anniversary." "Yes, it is," Tom replied calmly. The fact is, your dress smells like it's been hanging in Jake Carter's closet for quite a while. And try as you might, you weren't quite successful in removing his scent from yourself." Justine's eyes widened. "What? Jake Carter, are you serious?" "Yes, you know Jake Carter," Tom continued evenly. "One of the senior partners at the law firm where you were." "Of course I know who he is," Justine said defensively. "I certainly hope so," Tom said, his voice growing colder. "After all, you've spent enough time with him, and he is little Jacob's biological father." Justine's face went pale. "What are you saying? That's outrageous. I will not sit here and be spoken to like this." "Actually, you will," Tom said firmly. "You will sit there and absorb whatever I choose to say to you, especially after what you've been doing for the last 16 months. "What? I don't know what you're talking about," Justine stammered. "Sure you do," Tom said, reaching into his briefcase. "Let's start with this." He dropped a sheet of paper in front of her. Justine stared at the document. "What's this?" "This is the result of a DNA test I had done on your child," Tom explained coldly. "According to this, Jacob is not my son. The sheet under it is another DNA test that proves the biological father is none other than your lover, Jake Carter, the man you named Jacob after." Justine's voice was barely a whisper. "How did you get Jake's DNA?" "That was easy," Tom replied matter-of-factly. "You've been bringing evidence home with you at least 3 nights a week. But there's more." He pulled out a thick folder and dropped it on the table. "What's this?" Justine asked, her hands shaking. "A copy of every email, text message, and direct message between you and Jake over the last 16 months, Tom said. "I hate to break it to you, but there really is no such thing as privacy online anymore." Justine tried to regain her composure. "Okay, I admit it. Jake and I had a relationship once, but that was it. And it was just companionship. It didn't mean anything. Not really." "Is that a fact?" Tom asked skeptically. "Please turn to page 75 and look about halfway down the page until you find the passage I highlighted. Tell me what you see." She flipped the pages until she got to the one Tom referenced. Her face went white as she read her own words to Jake. "I'm waiting," Tom said impatiently. "I'm reading it," Justine whispered. "Out loud," Tom demanded. "I want to hear you say the words you wrote to him." She gulped and looked back at the page. "Please, don't make me do this." "Either you do it or I will," Tom said coldly. "And if I do it, I promise I won't care who hears." Tears falling down her face, Justine looked back at the paper and began reading the words Tom highlighted. "I love what you do for me, Jake. I haven't felt so wonderfully cared for as I have these last 16 months. I can't wait until we can be together properly. I love being with you, even more than with Tom, and I look forward to the next time we can be together." Tom's voice was bitter. "In all the time we were married, I don't recall you ever once speaking to me like that." Justine looked up desperately. "Is this all you have?" "No," Tom replied. "I have pictures, audio, and video, hours upon hours of evidence." "You must really hate me," Justine said quietly as she pushed her food around on her plate. "Yes, I do," Tom said without hesitation. "There was a time I would have taken a bullet for you. Now it's all I can do to keep from walking away from you completely." "How long have you known?" Justine asked. "I had suspicions before you told me you were pregnant," Tom explained. "I did some digging and got some evidence, enough to satisfy the prenup. By the time I spoke to an attorney, though, you informed me you were pregnant. The lawyer told me in no uncertain terms that no judge would even entertain a divorce until after you gave birth, child support and all that. You see, about now that Jacob is born, I have more than enough evidence to get the job done. So, I filed for divorce on the grounds of adultery." Tom motioned to the 2 people at the table close by, who stood up and walked to their table. "This nice man has something for you." The process server approached their table. "Ms. Justine Waters?" "Yes," Justine said quietly. The man put a manila envelope in front of her. "You have been served." "Served?" Justine asked in confusion. "Yes, served with divorce papers," Tom explained. "Look them over. You'll find they're just as we agreed in the prenuptial. Sign them now, and I'm prepared to give you a bank draft for $2,145.63. The exact amount you had when we married. Don't ask for any more. I already know about your secret little savings account. You can keep that, along with your retirement. All of your belongings have been taken to your mother's house. Yes, she knows, and she's very disappointed in you. But she's agreed to let you stay with her until you can find a place of your own. For the boy's sake, not yours. Justine's voice broke. But I don't want a divorce. I love you. Please, Justine, Tom said with disgust. Don't insult my intelligence. Listen. He pulled out his phone and played her conversation with Jake from earlier that day. Her eyes grew wide when she heard her own voice coming from Tom's phone. How did you get that? Justine gasped. Well, I'd tell you, but then I'd really have to take serious action, Tom said ominously. As much as I'm upset with you right now, I really don't think it would be right to deprive little Jacob of his mother. I was nothing more to you than a meal ticket and a caretaker while your lover got all the benefits. Just so you know, your ticket's been punched. No more free meals for you. At least, from me. What about Jake? Justine asked anxiously. Ah, concerned for your lover, are you? Tom asked with a cold smile. Fortunately, we live in a state that allows for alienation of affection lawsuits. For me, that is. He's being served right now. It may or may not go anywhere, but it's the principle that counts, don't you think? Anyway, his troubles are just beginning. You see, I spoke with Hamilton Parker, your managing partner, today, showed him my evidence, and expressed my displeasure with the knowledge that one of his senior partners is involved with a subordinate, specifically a subordinate married to me, at least for the moment. Mr. Parker was quite concerned, and more than a bit anxious that Mr. Carter's actions might bring unwelcome attention to his firm, not to mention a somewhat significant financial burden. He agreed it would be best if Mr. Carter was no longer affiliated with the firm and assured me he would take it up with his board this evening. He also agreed that it would not be right to punish you, especially since you're a mother with a newborn baby. After all, Mr. Carter was your boss, in a manner of speaking, and he did not want to expose the firm to a potential harassment lawsuit. Given your work history there, he agreed it would be best to keep you on board, at least for the time being. But I assure you, Mr. Carter's troubles are just beginning. How much do you know about your lover? I mean, really know. What are you talking about? Justine asked, confusion evident in her voice. I'm talking about his clients, Tom said, leaning forward. The people he does business with. Who he really represents, that is, and what he does when he's not spending time with you. What do you know about that? I don't know, Justine replied shakily. He doesn't talk about any of that with me. Probably a good thing, Tom said with a dangerous smile. Let's just say your Jake Carter has a very interesting clientele, the kind that attracts the attention of certain federal agencies. Agencies that can make a person disappear without a trace. You follow what I'm saying? You're scaring me, Tom, Justine whispered. And you should be scared, Tom replied seriously. Scared enough to stay away from Jake Carter, because he is going down. And if you're anywhere near him when it happens, you'll go down as well. Who are you, Tom, really? Justine asked, studying his face with new eyes. He smiled, nodding his head at the paperwork in front of her. Sign the papers, Justine, and end this charade now. I've probably told you far too much already, and by the way, your credit card has been canceled and your house key no longer works. I had the locks changed today while you were with Jake. I've also taken care of the bank account, so you no longer have access to that. Given that you put half of your earnings into your own secret account, that shouldn't be an issue for you anyway. You have been busy, haven't you? Justine said with bitter resignation. Tom shrugged his shoulders indifferently. Defeated, Justine looked the divorce papers over and saw they were just as Tom had said. She signed the papers and handed the pen back to Tom. He smiled as he took the pen and looked the papers over. The process server witnessed the signatures, and the woman with him notarized the signed paperwork. Tom handed the papers back to the process server. I'll see these get to your lawyer, Mr. Waters, the process server said. Thank you, Tom replied curtly. After they left, Tom turned back to Justine. I believe you need to surrender your rings. Do I have to? Justine pleaded. I love those rings. Apparently not enough to stay faithful to our marriage, Tom said coldly. Justine tearfully removed her wedding and engagement rings and put them on the table. He put them in his pocket before addressing her. "I believe our business here is concluded." "Concluded?" Justine asked in disbelief. "That's all you have to say?" "What more needs to be said?" Tom replied dismissively. "Why did you do this on our anniversary?" Justine demanded. "Do you know how humiliating this was for me? Do you know how humiliating it was for me to learn that you'd been having an affair all this time?" Tom shot back. "And how humiliating it was to learn Jacob wasn't even my son? And how humiliating it was when I learned you were with Carter on our anniversary? Don't even go there with me. We're done. We're finished. Goodbye, Justine. I never want to see your face again." With that, he turned back to his meal, not looking at Justine, who wiped her face. The waitress came by and asked if everything was all right. "Yes, the meal is excellent as always," Tom said to the waitress. "I'll take care of the check, and I believe the lady will take her food to go, please." "Yes, sir," the waitress said, leaving to get a box for Justine's meal. She came back a few moments later and put the rest of Justine's meal in a container. Tom handed the waitress his credit card and paid for the meal as Justine gathered her things. After the waitress finished, Justine looked at Tom one last time. "And that's it?" she asked desperately. "That's it," Tom said with a wave of his hand. She couldn't believe the way he just dismissed her. "I'm sorry, Tom." He looked up from his meal before speaking. "Well, on that we can both agree. Good day now. Tell your mother I said hello. Oh, and happy anniversary," he added with a slight smile. Justine, not believing the calm manner in which her husband basically just dismissed her, ran from the table sobbing. Tom smiled, then turned back to his meal. He saw a few of the patrons looking at him with disapproval, but only smiled back, shrugging his shoulders. He may have been calm and collected on the outside, but inside, he was an emotional wreck. 5 years, down the drain. At least, now the worst was over. Tom managed to get through the next few days without incident. It wasn't easy. He did love Justine at one time, and it hurt that he had to deal with her the way he did. But he figured it was better to do that than lose control the way he was tempted to. Then came the day he heard the banging at his front door. He was in his master bedroom upstairs and looked out the window to see Carter's sports car in his driveway. He had a feeling something like this would happen, so he had some additions added to his house at Alpha One's insistence. He went downstairs and opened the door. Sure enough, it was Jake Carter. And he was angry. Tom backed up as Carter pushed his way inside. "You terrible person!" Jake screamed, his face red with rage. "You cost me my job, and Justine won't even talk to me. I'm gonna make you pay for this." He advanced on Tom until he saw 15 tiny red dots suddenly appear on his shirt. "Intruder alert!" screamed an electronic voice from speakers embedded in the walls. "Do not move." "What the heck is this?" Jake screamed, panic replacing his anger. He reached up with his hands as though brushing the dots away. Suddenly, there was the staccato sound of something being fired, like an air rifle. As Jake looked down, he saw 15 darts sticking out of his body. He reached up, but never made it. His eyes rolled up into his head, and his body collapsed to the floor. "I don't think you're going to be threatening anyone today, Carter," Tom said calmly as he grabbed his phone. He pressed an icon on the phone and heard a man's voice. "Operator 715,463. Clean up on aisle 15, Tom said into the phone. "Clean up on aisle 15, copy that," came the reply. Tom pressed another icon, and the systems that just shot Jake full of tranquilizer darts rotated and retracted back into the ceiling. When the doors closed on the systems, no one could tell that anything was there. Tom smiled, happy that the new security system worked as advertised. A few minutes later, a white unmarked van pulled into the driveway. Several men in protective suits came into the house and dragged Jake's unconscious body out of the house. One of them grabbed Jake's keys and got into the sports car. Within a couple minutes, the van and Jake's sports car were gone. Tom closed the door and went about his business. A few days later, after Tom had purchased a caramel mocha at a local coffee shop, he was stopped in the street by a large man in a dark suit and sunglasses. "Alpha One wishes to speak with you, Mr. Waters," the large man said tersely. "Now." "All right," Tom said, a bit put off by the man's attitude. He followed the man to a long black limousine parked on the side of the street and got inside after the man opened a back door. "Wesser, glad to see you're out and about," Alpha One said after the door was closed. Yes, sir, I have a lot to do," Tom replied nervously. "Please, Tom," Alpha One said with a slight smile. "When it's just us, you can call me Regis. I wanted to give you an update on Mr. Carter." "He's talking freely." "Thank you, Alpha. Reggie," Tom said, correcting himself. "So, he's telling you everything you need?" "Oh yes, he did that right off the bat," Regis replied. "But he's literally behaving strangely right now. Seems the combination of those tranquilizer darts in your new security system and the serum we used to extract the information we needed affected his mental state. Right now, he's in a secure facility acting quite peculiarly." "Oh?" Tom said, unsure how to respond. Regis pulled an envelope out of his jacket pocket and handed it to Tom. "We did get him to settle with you out of court before he became too incompetent to sign his own name. He was so grateful to be alive that he settled for far more than you wanted." "Well, that's good to hear," Tom said, accepting the envelope. "By the way, I want you to know that I'm really impressed with that new system of yours," Regis continued. "Now that we've got what we need from Carter, I'm glad you didn't use the more lethal security measures I suggested." "Me too," Tom replied with a slight smile. "I just had that carpet cleaned." Regis chuckled at that. "Have you heard anything about Justine?" "Yes," Tom answered. "She's back to work, although Mr. Parker is keeping her on a very short leash. Did you ever mention to her who it is you really work for?" "No, Regis, I never did," Tom assured him. Regis nodded his head. He already knew that from his monitoring devices, but wanted to hear it from Tom, personally. "Good. Well, when your divorce is final, I'd like you to come by headquarters. I'd like to introduce you to your new partner." "Partner?" Tom asked with surprise. "I've never needed a partner before." "Well, there's a first time for everything, isn't there, Tom?" Regis said with authority. Yes, sir, I suppose so," Tom replied. "That's the spirit, Tom," Regis said approvingly. "I look forward to seeing you then." "Me too, Regis," Tom said as the door opened, signaling the end of the meeting. Tom got out of the limousine and watched as the large man squeezed himself into the driver's seat. As the long vehicle pulled into traffic, Tom wondered what Regis had in store for him. And so, we've reached the end of today's story. Was it what you expected, or did it take a twist you didn't see coming? I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Share them in the comments below, and let's get a conversation going. If this story kept you hooked, make sure to hit that like button. And if you're new here or just haven't subscribed yet, now's the perfect time to join our community. I bring you fresh, captivating stories every day, so click that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss out. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.